Let me give you the definition of a river in Arizona. We call a river until it has water in it. Then we call it a flood. The desert needs the water, but I tell you, managing those large amounts of water that falls across the desert is hard to get a handle on and direct it where it's most beneficial. It does cause a lot of damage.
Water can be a very destructive force, can cause erosion. A wash is a conveyance system for stormwater that flows through a watershed. Sometimes it's naturally occurring, sometimes it's man-made.
The impact of these floods do not discriminate. They reap havoc on everyone, from farmers to private property to homeowners.
Because the ground is not accustomed to absorbing that water, we don't have a lot of vegetation in this area that helps with the infiltration of the water. When it hits, it just runs off. And when we get the monsoon events, they're very heavy rain events in a very short amount of time, so there's not time for that water to infiltrate. So it concentrates and it flows downhill and until it impacts personal property, until it impacts public infrastructure, and until it impacts entire communities.
We monitor the activities in and around these watersheds because the slightest amount of maybe protection that you think you're putting out for your piece of property can affect the properties downstream and or upstream.
In the case of the Smith Wash, what we're looking at is largely farmer built, is 183 square miles. It converges with the Vehicle Wash northwest of the city of Maricopa at SR 238 along Ak-Chin property.
An event with maybe even an inch of rain, the magnitude, when it all comes to a single point, a wash, an area, the volume and the force that water will carry can be very damaging.
There is a history of flooding from the Smith Wash Watershed and from the wash itself, where the banks have overtopped. In 2018, in the storm event from the remnants of Hurricane Rosa, the county experienced about $450,000 in roadway damage. Maricopa Stanfield Irrigation and Drainage District experienced about $650,000 in damage to their infrastructure. And the farmers' agricultural properties along Smith Wash experienced an average about $235 an acre in damage to their properties.
Now, with all the growth that's happened out there in the Maricopa area, you can see how it can have an effect on the properties and why the study is needed at this time to try and mitigate these events.
What we're trying to identify with this study is what the sources of those flows are, where they concentrate, where they're likely to create the greatest damages, and then what we can do to design to counteract those damages.
The cost of these studies are tremendous because it's a lot of mapping and analyzing and studying and looking up history of flows. So it's difficult for some people to understand how important these studies really are. But thanks to our congressional offices, Senator Mark Kelly and the Arizona delegation, they've been able to lobby us at the Washington, D.C. level to convince people that we need to protect the property values of the folks that live in this area.
What we're looking at is a lot of different possible options. We're looking at potentially some offline basins. We're looking at potentially channelization in some areas. We're looking at potentially some impoundment within the wash itself to slow the water down, to allow it to infiltrate, to create some sort of green areas where vegetation will grow and help with the natural infiltration.
It can be anything from bridges to culverts to widening of washes. There's a whole number of methods that we're used to mitigate these events. From the study, this is what we will determine. It's not if it's going to happen, it's going to happen and when. And how do we prepare for that in the future?